Fly me to the moon and let me dance among the stars. Let me know what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words,
you can become a great speaker. Now this is really, honestly, this is not hype. This is not fiction or fantasy. You truly can become a great speaker. Of course, it doesn't come easy, but you can become great. And I'm going to share with you to start out tonight an example of two different people and how their lives changed from being miserable speakers to becoming known for being pretty good speakers. And I think you'll know the first guy. You ever seen this guy before? No. Winston Churchill. Right? He's considered one of the greatest speakers ever. You know that? When he was a young boy, he had a speech impediment. He had a hard time. He had a lisp. He had a hard time speaking. When he was in his early 20s, everybody said he was the most boring speaker they ever heard. At age 29, he was elected to the House of Commons in England. And the first time he went to give a speech, he forgot what he was going to say. And he stood there for 3 minutes, and everybody in the room laughed at him. He went down and sat back in his chair, and he vowed that he would become a master of the spoken word. So through a lot of hard work, 30 years later, his speeches influenced the outcome of World War II. Isn't that amazing? From a guy with a lisp, who was boring and couldn't even remember what to say. But he worked very hard at it. And there's another person I know who, I'm serious, is so petrified of getting in front of people that he never thought he'd be able to do it. And it was this guy. That's actually me when I had hair. This was like when I was at university. Because I was studying to be a sport teacher, and you know, we had to take turns teaching each other in class. And when I would get up there to do it, I'd be shaking and, oh my gosh, my brain stopped working, and people were just laughing at me. You know what I did? I vowed, just like Winston Churchill, but I had a different vow. I vowed I would never speak again. Okay. When I was in my 30s, I went to Bible school, and I had to get a master's, and I had to take a preaching class. And we had to do like mini sermons, like 10-minute mini sermons. The first time I was supposed to do mine, I didn't do it. You know why? I spent the whole night before vomiting. Do you understand how scared I was about getting in front of people? That was me. And then, lo and behold, this is last November. I'm competing at the district level of representing 300 clubs from 13 divisions in like 18 countries. Okay? And I made it to the final 6.
No vomiting here?
No vomiting. I was having fun there. And I took a little video, not when I got to speak, but the first day it started, I took a little video. I'm just going to share it. So this was the kind of audience. Now let me tell you, 10 years ago, that would have freaked me out totally. I could have never done anything like that. So I'm saying, from practical experience, from my own, that anyone can become a great speaker. I mean, I was amazed that I made it that far to this level. I would have never guessed I could do that. But if you work at it, guess what? You can do it. Now, are you ready to know the secret to becoming a great speaker?
Yes.
Yeah.
Becoming a great speaker is a journey. It's a step-by-step process of hard work done consistently to reach your goal. So it's learning how you go about that's important. But the thing is, it is something that's step-by-step, and it's a process, and it needs to be consistent. If you do those things, and I'm going to share what things you need to do, you will become a great speaker. Right, so there is your goal, the top of the mountain. So what do you need to do at first? The first thing you've got to figure out is your why. Why do you want to become a great speaker? Then you're going to have to figure out, what do I need to do in order to become a great speaker? And then, how do I go about that? In other words, you can know what to do, but then you have to actually do it. Right? Because a lot of people know what to do, but they don't do anything. So where do you start? With this journey, what is the most important thing you need to do to start out? Where does it start? Right here. It starts in your heart. If you don't have the motivation, you're never going to have the determination when things get hard. Because in public speaking, you're going to hit walls at times. You're not going to improve as much as you think. Or you'll disappoint yourself. And those are times it's easy to quit. But if you work through those, man, the improvement you make is amazing. So you have to punch through those things. So you better have heart to do it. So you start off by knowing your why. And here's something I want to challenge you all with. Reading these quotes. Now, I'm going to have people read quotes. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, just let me know. But I want to share and have different people reading the quotes. Would you guys not mind doing that? Would it be okay? Yeah. Okay. Because I don't want to sit on top all the time. I'll let you get the quotes. But here's from Michelangelo. Arena?
The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it.
That can be true. You can come to Toastmasters, you can do all the speeches, and stay a mediocre speaker. Because if you don't put the effort into it, you're never going to grow. So I'm challenging you, don't be satisfied with being mediocre. Push yourself to be the best you possibly could be, and you will get better, okay? But push yourself a little bit. This makes what makes life interesting. Living life in mediocre, that's boring. Come on, push yourself, get out of your comfort zone. And you'll find in Toastmasters, you're going to get plenty of opportunities to push out of your comfort zone. Now this is Dan Yaya. He was the 2014 world champion for Toastmasters. His speech is, I see something in you. Great speech. He was in Yash 2 years ago for our conference. And he said this, he says, you know what, really, not too many people want to become great speakers. He says, most people just wish to become great speakers. There's a difference between wanting and wishing. You have to want it bad enough. Because you won't work if you don't do that. Now, when I encourage people to join in Toastmasters or do public speaking, when I talk to them, this is the look I usually get. Why the heck would I want to do public speaking? Well, I'm going to tell you why you should do it. This will be my whys, but you've got to figure out your own whys, okay? And here's the first thing, most important. Being able to speak in public gives you confidence. Most people, if you're at work and you don't want to speak at work, you're kind of hiding and hoping someone else will be chosen to go speak. Does anybody relate to that at all? Huh? Seriously? If you don't have the confidence to speak, you'll avoid it. But if you have the confidence and you get out there and you're speaking in front of people and you're getting better, what's going to happen? You're going to get noticed for your speaking abilities. And that's going to open up opportunities for you in ways you probably won't even imagine. For me, having done this Toastmaster stuff, I was really amazed what happened to me, that I got to be able to come and speak in front of groups and talk about public speaking. I would have never guessed that. When I started in Toastmasters, I was terrible at table talks. I didn't even make it to 1 minute the first time. And I was so mad that I told the table talking master every week, pick me, pick me. And I worked really hard at it. 2 years later, I was the divisional champion. So I'm just saying, if you've got the desire, you can get there. Now, Andre, would you read that for us, please?
You can improve your value by 50% just by learning communication skills, public speaking. Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. He's a billionaire. And guess what? He took public speaking classes when he was young. And he found out that this was very important for his career. Here's another quote. David, can you read this one?
Lack of communication skills is holding back many people from making a real difference in achieving their goals, both professionally and personally. Julian Treasure.
He's very famous for his TED Talks. So there are many benefits. Some of the benefits is you make personal connections with a lot of different people. You get new friends. You get opportunities to go out and do things in different events. So there's professional and personal benefits from it. And in the end, there is money too. You can improve your income from doing this. And this stuff is all great. It's all great, but there's actually something much better, in my opinion. Can you guess what that is? Something better than the benefits. Right? the impact and influence you can have on other people to change the world. That is powerful. When you can use your words to encourage people or help them grow and they have a better life, that's exciting. What do you think for me, coming here and hoping that I can share with you to want to become better speakers so that your life is improved? That to me is what I like doing. This is more important than the money. Now the money is nice, don't argue with that, it's nice. But there's something even more important. You can change the world. And that's not an exaggeration. So we start our journey, a step-by-step process, by looking here in the heart. Correct? Answer your why question. Now, is this clear to everybody? Is there any questions at this point? This is the introduction here. All right? If you want to become a great speaker, you can become. It will take work, but you can become. No doubt about it. Andre?
Well, for example, I'm not interested in those whys, like confidence. I don't have a why, it's just something that interests me.
Okay.
For some reason, I'm attracted to it, and why? I don't know, I just like it.
Okay. But sometimes, in people like you, I've seen, once they start getting really good and it changes their life, then they get hooked on it. Okay? Yeah. So then it becomes something of much benefit for them. Right? So today, as we look at some of the issues of what it takes to become great, I'm going to give you more of the big picture. I will share a few of the details, but in 45 minutes, there's no way I can cover much, okay? So I just want you to come away with the big ideas. And I have made a copy of the slides and a PDF with all my notes, even extra quotes and other stuff on it. And it's going to be available on the Facebook event to download. The link is only good for 7 days. But you can have everything we're going to share and even more, okay? And you know what? It's good for 7 days. After 7 days, it goes up to the 10,000 euro cost. But for now, it's free. So we start by, what is the foundation for greatness? What are the things that are essential, no matter what we do in life? It doesn't matter if it's public speaking or become a really good guitar player or a programmer. Whatever it is, there are certain things you can do to help you to become great. And the first thing we have to deal with is our mindset. Then we have to develop a system for how we learn things. And then we need to have a routine for using our system. Because you can have a system, but if you don't do anything with it, it doesn't do you any good. So let's look at a few details about this. Like mindset. Does anybody know what mindset is? Yeah? Well, here, I got a definition for you. Gabriel, would you go ahead?
Yeah, a mindset is a set of ideas and attitudes that shape the way that we think about ourselves and the world. It determines how we behave, our outlook on life, and our attitude towards everything that's going on around us.
So it's how we look at the world, basically, right? And so this can be a symbolic of a mindset. You look at the world as a glass half full or half empty, right? Positive, negative. That's a type of mindset. But what we want to focus on is the fixed versus growth type of mindsets. When I was younger, when I was at Bible school and freaking out, it never dawned on me I could get better. I just was scared and I didn't want to do it. I didn't know that speaking is something you could learn. So I had what kind of mindset? What did I have?
Fixed.
I had a fixed mindset. So you need to have a growth mindset. You have to be about improving yourself. If you have that in your mind, then you have a chance. So here's a couple things that I think are important with the type of mindset that you have, growth mindset. First of all, you need to be proactive. You're not waiting for people to do stuff for you. You go ahead and do it. You know, when I joined Toastmasters, my mentor, she said to me, William, you know more than me. I don't want to mentor you. So I had a mentor. So you know what I did? I went online and started searching on Google. And I taught myself everything I needed to know. You don't have to wait for others. We have all kinds of resources. Use them. You need to embrace excellence in what you do. Don't be satisfied with mediocrity. Always be pushing yourself to get better and to be better. And sometimes it is frustrating, but you know what? That develops your character. So it's helpful even when you struggle. Then you have being a self-learner. It's great to have coaches and great to have mentors and use them if you have them, but you need to learn to teach yourself. When I mentor people, I use a guided discovery way of doing it, so that after they've done a speech or two with me, they don't need my help anymore. They know what to do. They learn the system. Then you have feedback. What should you do with feedback? This is something I learned in Toastmasters. How I use my feedback has really made a difference in how good I became. And we're going to talk about feedback later. Then you need consistency. And we'll look at a quote here in a minute about consistency, but this is actually the secret. If you keep doing something, you're going to get better and better and better. But if you stop for a while and you start up again, you lose that momentum. So if you stay consistent with something, the amount of growth you have is, it multiplies by factors of 5, 10, 15 over time. Now, commitment, if you want to be good at something, you're going to have to make some kind of commitment. You're going to have to set aside time and effort and work. So you better have that heart in order to make the commitment for it. Persistence, when things aren't going easy, being persistent is going to help a lot. And then there's one more aspect of mindset that I think is really important, because I've experienced, I've done a lot of, I've been at Toastmasters 6 years, and I've done Vice President of Education 3 times. So I know a little bit about dealing with people and dealing with how they improve. And what I find is the people who let their mindset be affected in a bad way about this issue, they don't improve very much, and that is their mindset about fear. Many people don't want to embrace the fear, to face it. They want life to be nice and easy. You know what? Our lives are very easy because of technology. You know, a few generations ago, people were worried if they're going to live or die. We don't generally have those kind of issues. We don't have the struggles. So something like public speaking is traumatic for us. But back then, they'd go, what are you guys talking about? You're standing in front of someone. What the heck's a big deal? So here, I did a speech last spring for the contest called Face Your Fear, and I came across this quote, and I really like it. Our fears establish the limits of our lives. Our fears establish the limits of our lives. Don't let your fears limit you. When fear comes, you need to face it, you need to embrace it, you need to walk through it, and keep going and going until you defeat it. Because when you do that, it's such a rush, and you see growth in your life. But if you're always the kind of person who doesn't want, I'm afraid, and you go back, you're never going to improve. So you need to try very hard to deal with fear. And Toastmasters is a great laboratory for dealing with fear. From doing table topics, from doing your speeches, even doing the roles where you have to get up and explain them. Right? Don't let fear stop you. Make sure you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone all the time. So we've looked at mindset. Now let's look at having a system, a learning system. How do you develop a learning system? Or why we should say that. Ron, do you go ahead on that?
Goals can provide direction and even push you forward in the short term. But eventually, a well-designed system will always win. Having a system is what matters. Committing to the process is what makes the difference. James Clear.
And this is what I have found. If you develop your system, and I'm always fine-tuning it, learning things and changing my system, but if you develop a system for learning how to speak, it helps you to be more efficient at actually becoming. So, in Toastmasters, we have a new educational system. It's called Pathways. That is a system. Right? You can use that system. Now, for me, since I've been here longer, we had the old manuals. Anybody here on the old manuals? Still using old manuals? So I'm more used to that, but I'm liking Pathways. I'm enjoying it. But what I did, since the last 6 years, I've kind of taken what I've learned from Toastmasters and all my own studying and all my own coaching of people, and I put together my own system. Right? I call it the speech preparation steps. And it's a 16-step process that I use for learning how to speak, or to put the speech together. It's going to be included in the materials that you can download. So you can just look at it and see if it's something that interests you or not. Now, the main thing on the speech preparation steps, it's still it's mostly geared for the old system, all right? So you're going to have to adapt it a little bit for Pathways. And the first step is to determine the speech requirements. Like in the manual, you had requirements. You had to meet certain things. In Pathways, you have to meet certain things. If you go out and do a conference, maybe the organizer will tell you there's specific things, okay? So whatever the first step is, determine the requirements that you have to meet. That's step one. The rest of it you'll understand. Now, this website here is awesome for having all the information and knowledge you need to become a really good speaker. It's no longer active. They're not putting anything new on here, but it's got a ton of great stuff. This is where I learned most of the stuff about speaking from this website. And it's free. Then this is a blog. I follow about 50, 60 blogs on public speaking and slide design. And each day I'm usually posting on Facebook and on LinkedIn one article a day of the best things I come across that day. So later, if you want to kind of get that stuff, I'll have my information up there and you can connect with me, okay? But this is a very good site. I love his stuff. It's probably the best. And actually, I like it so much, I finally bought a couple of his books, you know, like for the PDF versions, 2 books for like 50 Rand. It wasn't too bad. So he's really good. And he has a background in acting, so he gives you some really good perspective on how to do performance. All right, so we've looked at a beginner mindset and understanding some basics of the system. Later we'll look more about the system stuff. But let's go on to the routine. This is probably the key point. You need to develop some kind of routine. If you're just kind of doing here, kind of there, things won't get done. But if you establish a time every day where you're going to do something, and I encourage people to spend at least 15 minutes a day doing something about speaking. Maybe it's learning about speaking, reading an article, but if you're doing a speech, then start working on it a little bit every day. And when you get done with the speech, maybe take a few days off, but then start the next speech. Because if you wait months in between, you're going to lose a lot of momentum. So be consistent, have a routine. Oh, and one other thing. What I do is identify something in your life you're already doing, and then just put that next to it. Like say if in the morning you take a shower, then you eat, and you just have 15 minutes where you study. Okay? Or in the evenings, or at lunchtime. Just find something that you normally do, and just add a little bit, like 15 minutes at minimum, to go with it. Now when you're doing speeches, maybe some days you're going to be putting in hours, a couple hours. But at least do 15 minutes a day, and other days more, according to what you can do. All right, here's another quote for, do you want to go ahead and read it?
The more time I spend working in coaching, the more I am amazed with the number of models, concepts, and theories that are floating around to help you improve your performance and increase your chances of success. For me, success comes from only one concept that you have to grasp. Be consistent with everything you do.
And having a routine helps you to be consistent. Okay? Another one here, Valentine.
Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going.
I'm sure you guys don't know who this guy is, but he was the first high schooler in America that did a 4-minute mile. So he's famous for that. But he's a motivational speaker. But now, so he's what he said. Habits is what you do. Motivation, the heart, gets you started, but it's the habits you develop using your system and a routine is what keeps you going. So these are things that are very helpful to have. And it's actually, there's some science involved in this as well. Okay? The law of inertia. What was your name?
Lavinia.
Can you read that, please?
An object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion.
Very simple, right? But if I'm working on a speech and I get done and I stop for a couple months, what happens to my momentum? It's gone. I've lost it. So if I keep continuing one right after another, I'm going to grow a lot faster than if I just do here, a little bit there. Okay, Marius, can you read that for me?
Yeah, excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but we rather have those because we acted rightly. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit.
Right. So remember earlier I talked about embracing excellence in what you do? Because they say practice makes perfect, and most of us should know that that's not true. Perfect practice makes perfect, but you can do mediocre practice. That's not going to make you perfect. And actually, there's no such thing as perfect. I think it this way. Hard practice helps you become better. Okay? That's it. You strive for excellence, but there's no such thing as perfection in speaking. Or at least I haven't found it yet. So one other quote about this. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Cosmin.
Cosmin, can you read it?
1 hour per day of study will put you at the top of your field within 3 years. Within 5 years, you'll be a national authority. In 7 years, you can be one of the best people in the world at what you do.
So if you want to be good, if you discipline yourself, you can get there. Is that right? Is this right?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes! So if you want to be good at something, you've got to put some effort into it. Now, so let's think about how we can adapt our routines for our lives. Can you guys tell me any way you think you could adapt it so that you put 15 minutes aside every day? Any ideas how to do that for yourself?
Make time.
Huh?
Make time.
But make time, like how? When would you do it? In the mornings, in the evening? How would you do it? Or at work?
If you want it, you make time.
Okay. Alexander?
Wake up 30 minutes, just 15 minutes you can just wake up and get this practice.
All right, so wake up a few minutes earlier so that you have some spare time to do something. Okay, that's one idea. But just think about, figure a way to put some time, and once you do it enough, it becomes a habit. Because I know, like, when I work out and I keep continuing at it, it's very easy to keep doing it. But when I stop for a week, oh, it's brutal. So the quitting is the hard part. So being consistent is good. So we've looked at our mindset, our system, and routine. Now, we talked about these things, but what do we focus them on? What is going to be the things we're going to look at and use it for? Okay? It's going to be knowing our audience is the first thing. Then creating our content, and third, practicing our delivery. These are the things you're going to focus those things on. Now, with a few more details, like I said, I can't give you a lot, and you would forget most of them anyway, right? But you have video, right? Are you going to make the video available?
Yeah. If you
I want you to, yeah.
allow me.
Great. So I would encourage you to look back at it, but it's up to you. But anyway, knowing your audience, really, this is the first step, because when you get better at speaking, you learn it's not about you anymore. It's about your audience. It's in what's in it for them. Is your audience coming to make you feel good about yourself? No, they're coming to get something out of it, right? So you want to be audience-centric. You don't want to be focused on yourself. And when the first few speeches you ever do, or at the beginning, most of your attention is on yourself, because it's just nervous and it's new. That's normal. But as you get going, you should get your attention off yourself and get focused on how you can help your audience, and that'll take away their nerves a lot. So here's 3 questions you need to ask. Who is my audience? Who are the people out there? What is their expertise? Are men, women? What do they know? What is their background? Because the more you know, the more it can help you. Okay? Then you need to know what your audience needs. What are they here for? What are they hoping to get from you? The more you know about that, then the better you can make your speech, correct? And then you have to answer the why question. And here's what I mean by this. We talked about this, the why for being a speaker, but imagine you're sitting at a desk and you're getting ready to write out your speech, and you just imagine your audience out in front of you, and they look at you and they go like this. Why should we listen to you? You better have a good answer. Okay? So that's the third. Why should people listen to you? Now, sometimes I use monkey survey in Toastmasters. Toastmasters, we tend not to do too much with knowing our audience. But I have found it helpful at times to do this. Now, monkeys, or Survey Monkey, lets you do 10 questions up to 100 people. Okay? So, and I know some people use Google and other things, but I like it. And one time I did a speech in my club about worldviews, about people, Christian, Buddha, all this stuff. You know what's fascinating? Almost everybody said they were Christian, but only 17% of them answered with Christian answers. So there was a big disconnect. And so that was very helpful for me putting my speech together. So just think of what questions you could ask to get insight that would help you put your speech together. All right, so we go with our content. Once we know our audience, we start working on the content we're going to do. And for me, this area is the most challenging one, I find. And I think my whole life I'm still going to continue trying to get better and better at developing content. It's a challenge. And being creative, it takes a lot of work. It's hard work, at least I find it is. So when we know our audience, then we can develop the purpose of our speech. That basically was that why question. Why should they be there? My purpose of my speech is going to accomplish something. When I did my Face Your Fear speech, this was my purpose. To inspire guys to face and defeat the fears that limit them. That's what I put right out there as I started to prepare my speech. And that guided me as I wrote my speech out. So I had my topic, Face Your Fear. Then I did some research. And that's where I found that quote that I shared earlier. And I was like, oh yes, that was great finding that. So I found out about people in fear and how it makes people afraid and why people avoid, and it helped me put together my speech. So after you've done all that, you need to develop an outline. Purpose, your research, and outline. Now, this is just showing some basic things, and I'm not going to share much, but when I do my speeches and when I'm mentoring people, I have them first, after they do the outline, after the outline is all done, I have them write out the opening and the closing first, before they do the middle. And then after they do the middle, or I do the middle, then I go back and fine-tune the opening and closing. Because here's what, if I know where I'm starting and I know where I'm ending, that can help me figure out what I want to say in between. But once you write it out, then you can say, oh, that ending could be better now. So you can change things as you go, but just to help give you some guidance. And I find doing an outline, having that purpose, it makes it much easier. And I used to have people fight me when I was mentoring in the club. Oh, why do I have to do all this stuff? And then they go, oh, that made it so much easier. So follow the process and you actually get better at it and it's easier. Now we'll go on to the delivery. This is critical to being a good speaker, but I consider it the easiest thing to improve. It's much easier, I think, than content. So you want to practice a lot on this, you want to do a lot of practice, so that things become more habit for you, that you don't have to really think about it when you're just standing in front of people. Now, here's what I do with people when I'm doing it. The first thing we do when they start practicing the delivery is to get comfortable saying the words. Because we don't speak like we write. If you speak like what you wrote down, it's going to sound very artificial. Right? So the first part is you start saying the speech and you go, that doesn't sound so good. So you change it to make it sound better. Right? So that's the first stage. And then get comfortable with the words. First step. Okay, that's the first step. Then you start practicing your body. In our club in Russia, we have a posture monitor. And when you do things incorrectly, you get clipped. A lot of clubs don't have that. But a lot of people are not. I go to other clubs and I don't see very good posture, gestures. So here's the basic gesture when you're speaking. All right? Feet apart, hands by your side. Correct? Does anybody disagree with this? This is the neutral position. You do your gesture, then you bring it down. But a lot of times you see people like this, or kind of tipping or turning around, those kind of things. You understand what I'm saying? Don't close yourself off. This is putting a barrier between your audience. Keep an open position and smile, and eye contact. These things make a huge difference. So we'll see. Smile, eye contact, facial expressions. A lot of times people don't do enough expression in their face. Make sure your face fits with what you're saying, right? You know, I'm really excited to be here. Doesn't kind of cut it, does it? All right, posture. The thing is, I see a lot of people when they're starting out, they're kind of like, I don't know what the things are, but they're shifting on their, you know what I'm saying? Have you guys seen this?
Yeah, this is
Let me show you a little secret. You put your feet like this, and you tip forwards just a little bit, like this, and forwards. I can't move my legs now. That keeps you from doing all that stuff. That's a little secret. Then there's the gestures, which I say. Make them big. The bigger the audience, the bigger the bigger the gesture should be. If you only have a few people, you don't have to go so dramatic. Okay? But the bigger, the better. Then stage presence. If you're going to talk about something that is involved in the timeline, you would start over on the left side. Your left. Your audience is right. Okay? Understand, you need to do things from your audience's perspective, not yours. So, past, present, future. Does that make sense to you?
No.
It's the other way around.
The other way.
Past, present,
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
Want to see. All right, now, the other thing is you can do with your stage present, if you're doing a speech where you're talking about different things, you can use different parts of the stage to represent those places, okay, or what you're doing. And sometimes for me, I will take, and when I did my fear thing, I did it kind of in a timeline, but it was the events were going in a certain way. But sometimes like you'll say, well, I went over to my mom's house, you know, and you can come over here. And later you can say, we went over to our friends to get something else, and then we went over to the funeral, and you're standing where your mom was, okay? So you want to make sure that you learn how to use the stage so that you're not using conflicting ideas at the same place. So anyway, learn how to use the stage to communicate part of what you're saying. Then your voice. Anybody here singers? Is there any singers in this room?
Only in the show.
Only in the show. But the voice makes a lot of difference, does it not? If you're monotone, everybody's going to fall asleep. But if you have a lot of variety, but one of the things I find at the highest level of speaking, like when you see the World Championship, you know what they're really good at? Pauses. Most of us, we like to rush through things and get done. You're uncomfortable with quiet. But when you're really good, let people, especially when you say something more profound or something you really want them to remember, you say it, you stop before you say it so they all start looking at you, then you say it, and then you stop and let them think about it. Then continue. So pausing is a part of using your voice. But using some variety, but here's the thing I would say the most I've learned. Use emotion in your voice. Learn to be emotional with your voice. Again, maybe, I said before, I'm really excited to be here today. Man, I'm so excited! So, do you see the emotion? Make sure that you have the emotion in your voice. Oh, and there's one more thing you should do. These are, doing an audience or all this stuff, that's all good. But one thing you need to do in addition to this is speak, speak, speak. You need to take every opportunity you can to speak if you want to become better. Now, as we speak, there's a few objectives we should have for our speeches. Like, what do I want to accomplish with my opening? What do I want to accomplish with my body? And what do I want to accomplish with my closing? And these things will take your speeches to another level. So the first thing we want to do is, actually, it's not, the first objective is not what to do, it's what not to do. Okay? Don't kill your audience. Don't bore them to death. Don't give them so much information their head explodes. These are the things that make a terrible speech. Have you ever been at a terrible speech or presentation, other than this one? Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do that to your audience. So what do you want to do? You want to connect with your audience at the beginning. You want to keep them engaged throughout the speech. And by the end, you want to change your audience. That's your goal. There has to be some kind of change. So, what in the heck does that all mean? What do connect, engage, change? What is that? Well, connecting is this. When you come out, there's very simple things. Eye contact, smiles, open position, enthusiasm in your voice. This helps you to connect with your audience, especially the eye contact. Then you also want to connect what you're going to talk about with your audience. Remember the why question we said? What did I do at the beginning of my talk? What did I do? What did I say? Does anybody remember? Everybody in this room?
Could become a great speaker.
Right. So I put it right to you right away. I connected what I was going to say with you personally. Everyone in this room can become a great speaker. So you knew what I was going to talk about. So you connected with what I was going to talk about. Now, as far as the engage part, sorry, I'm getting out of sync here. So that was the connect with the engage part. It's the idea of having a logical structure that's simple, that is not overcomplicated and makes sense, makes a huge difference in speech. Because sometimes people are talking about something and they go off on something else and you're going like, what the heck did that have to do? It has to have some kind of logical structure to it. Also, again, your voice, your body helps you to do this. And doing things like humor and stories help keep people engaged. Asking questions, doing rhetorical devices like metaphors and these things. These all help to keep people engaged in what you're doing. And also, really good transitions to the next part. So the change part. So you want your ending to be memorable. You want it to motivate people to want to do something. Don't you want them to do something once they leave with what you said? Because if they don't have something to do, they're not going to probably do anything. So you want to give them some kind of call to action. But here's the goal. You want to take a person from being like this to being a better. You want to help every person in your audience to become a better version of themselves in some way. That is your goal as a speaker. Now, I said, the call to action. In your closing somewhere, you should give your audience something to do when they go home. so that they will follow up on this. Tonight, I will give you a call to action at the end of my presentation, okay? And you'll see. So now we've looked at the objectives of it, but now I want to talk a little bit about feedback, because feedback is very important. What happens when Toastmasters is that usually everybody gives you a little bit of feedback who's watching you, and you have an official evaluator. Do you guys have official evaluators?
Yep.
Okay. So they give you, and you have video. So you have 3 groups of feedback from people. What you should do with all the feedback you get is compile a list of all the feedback you get, and especially consider the things that's the things that are said the most. Because like sometimes some of the feedback is not very good, but if you see several people saying the same thing, that's probably something you should focus on to improve. So you want to compile a list from all the feedback you get, and then evaluate it and go through it and make a list from the best feedback you got to the least, and have it there, look at it, but then after that, look at the video. Because then if you're aware of what everybody else is saying about your speech, when you look at the video, after you've been aware of that, you will look for that stuff more clearly. So make a list, then we'll look at the video, and as you're doing the video, write down your own comments. And then after that, you'll just merge the list together, and take at least 3 things from that list to work on for your next speech. So with every speech, you're getting a little better. And so like say my opening wasn't very good. Right? So everybody said that. So that would be one of the 3 things I'd work on. So what would I do? I would go research about how I could do better openings. I would learn about that. Then I would put it to practice when I did my next speech. And then of course, what do we need to do? Speak as much as possible. And you know what? You can get very comfortable in Toastmasters and then be afraid to go out when you go out. So try as best you can to get opportunities to speak outside of Toastmasters as well. Most of you can you speak at work? Most of you? Do you have opportunities to speak at work? Yeah. Take advantage of those type of things. Or figure out how to do that. So any questions? At all.
Where do we get so much time for it?
15 minutes a day. It's a process over time. Right? Now, listen, you went to school, right? How many hours did you put in for school?
Oh,
okay. Now, you saw earlier Warren Buffett said that you can increase your value by 50%, correct? So that 50%, he's like saying you're doubling your value for what you did for school. All right? Is it going to take the same amount of time to become a good speaker as it did to go to school? But you can double your value by doing it. It's going to be deciding if it's important enough to you. So if it's something important and you value that, you will make time. But it doesn't have to be that. Remember that thing we saw, 1 hour a day? Could you do that? Is it possible, humanly possible for people to put 1 hour a day to work on something? Yes. I think it is. But you have to have the heart. Okay, so remember, it's a process to become a great speaker. It's a journey. It's a step-by-step process. And you learn as you go. Learning, doing, evaluating, learning, doing, evaluating. It's a process you go through. Remember, it starts here. Know your own why. Remember, and I'm just going to give some highlights on a few things. These are the key things I want you to remember. Okay, what's the foundation? Is to choose a growth mindset. Develop a learning system. And establishing a consistent routine. These are key things you need to do. And focus that on knowing your audience, creating your content, and practicing your delivery. Those are the key things. But your objectives are not to kill your audience, but to connect with them, engage them, and change them. So, and then take your feedback and prepare for the next speech. Keep speaking as much as you can. So we come to the end. So here's my call to action for you. I want you to download the materials I put in the zip file that I give the link to Valentin. He'll put it on his event. If you're not connected here and you want it, you can get it from me as well, because I have the link. And so here is my information, if any of you just use your phone or whatever. But by the way, I keep always forgetting to tell people, you know what those flowers are behind them?
No.
In English, they're called Sweet Williams. So see, Dolce World, that's the connection. So download that file, open up the zip file, and go to this file first. Start here. Okay? And once you get in there, go to the First Steps PDF. You do that, you'll know what to do after. Okay? Oh, and there's one more thing you should do. What is that? Take advantage of your Toastmaster experience. Right? And if you're not in Toastmasters, join it. Because for me, I cannot see anywhere else where you can learn as much as in Toastmasters for public speaking. So if you're in Toastmasters, take advantage of it. Don't still slow. Push. Fight to get into table topics. Fight to do speeches. Get in there and do things. And if you do that, you will become a great speaker. And if you become a great speaker, you will influence and impact people. And not only that, you will change the world. Be a force for good. Become a great speaker. Thank you very much.